Welcome to Modernize Your Desktop and Application Delivery with AWS. I'm Jeff Ferris. I'm the Principal Specialized Solutions Architect for End User Computing. I've been with AWS for about 4 years. When we launched our WorkSpaces product, I got into the end user computing space. It's been an area for me that's a long-running part of my background. I've worked with Microsoft technologies, desktop and end user technologies for the majority of my career. In fact, when I first met my wife, I proposed to her in a book titled Windows 2000 Deployment and Desktop Management and thought that was a completely reasonable thing to do. She said yes anyway. All right, so what are we going to talk about in this session? We're going to go over an overview of Amazon WorkSpaces. We'll go over an overview of the Amazon AppStream 2.0 product. We'll talk a little bit about your Active Directory integration considerations, how you grant access to corporate resources, and then how we bring everything together into a standardized solution. Before that, why are we talking about end user computing? We're seeing a significant shift in the business IT landscape. The workforce is evolving. 43% of employees worked remotely at least part-time in 2016, up 5% from 2010. 50% of millennials factor the ability to work remotely into their employment decisions. And 65% of employees have expressed a preference for flexible and remote work environments. Employees who work remotely 20 to 60% of the time show that they're more engaged through workplace surveys. At the same time, organizations are becoming more dynamic. Businesses large and small are increasingly operating in global environments. Global mergers and acquisitions reached $3.7 trillion in 2017. As businesses operate globally, they need to match their presence around the world, and AWS gives them an easy way to do that. And of course, security is a continually pressing concern. In 2017, the average data breach was estimated to cost $3.62 million, with the WannaCry ransomware attack alone estimated to run upwards of $4 billion. So what are customers telling us? They're looking for a way to create new and novel solutions to address these 5 key business imperatives. First, of course, is embracing personal devices, or bring your own device. For those of you who have been in end user space for a very long time, at the beginning we referred to that as bring your own disaster, right? As the consumer landscape expands, becomes more diverse, employees want to just bring whatever device they have, their tablets, their gaming PCs, their MacBooks, their standard Surface tablets. They want to bring all of that into the corporate environment. Second is really the expansion of that contract work. As supply chains span the globe, businesses are increasingly turning to vendors, outsourcers, and contractors for that critical project delivery. IT needs to provide them with a secure, convenient access method for that proprietary company data and systems in the back end. Supporting such workers securely is a critical challenge. Work is, of course, becoming increasingly mobile. The traditional workday where you spent 9 to 5 at a desk in the office, well, that's a thing of the past. We did that. Like, we created these remote solution environments. We as IT gave everyone a way to never take a snow day. Now your work can happen at home, on the road, from a coffee shop, from a customer site, anywhere you go. Many workers are taking advantage of those scenarios to create flexible arrangements, and they're working remote a lot of the time. Employees need to be productive regardless of where they are. Of course, with all of these use cases, we're still concerned about data security. How do we make sure that our corporate data is secure and managed in these new Wild West environments? All the while, we want to remain agile. So what hasn't worked in the past? Well, personal computers, right? The physical inventory, managing those desktops. When you have contract workers, how do you get those initial assets to those users? And when the contract is over, how do you bring those assets back in? BYOD is complicated. Are you going to rewrite your applications to support tablets and mobile devices? How are you going to solve all these issues with granting access to your standard corporate data in that secure mechanism through personal systems? And on-premises VDI. It's an expensive upfront investment, weeks to deploy, if not months. Requires heavy management. Your servers have to be secured. It's expensive to scale. And that data storage across multiple devices where you have limited control, users accessing large files, trying to collaborate on systems that may or may not be part of your environment, it's a very difficult problem to solve. And that's where AWS comes in. So we know you're probably already an AWS customer and you're comfortable with what you may consider the traditional AWS workloads, your web applications, your databases, and so on. Well, you can get a lot of the same benefits with end user computing on the AWS cloud. We have a single desktop and application strategy that provides access to applications, flexible desktops available anywhere, and access to your data wherever you may be on whatever device you're using. With AWS, of course, security is still our #1 priority. All of our solutions offer end-to-end encryption. For end users, you're centralizing your applications and data on AWS, leaving nothing on those devices, all while accessing the performance of the AWS cloud. WorkSpaces is the fully managed, secure, virtual cloud desktop, so really that full desktop experience running on AWS. WorkDocs gives you secure file collaboration and management in a simplified interface, and AppStream is a mechanism to easily stream desktop applications to any device running in just a web browser. So I'm going to briefly recap all of the services. We'll start with WorkSpaces. WorkSpaces has been around a little bit longer, since 2014. Again, it is the cost-effective managed cloud desktops for those flexible work styles. The solution is pay-as-you-go. You're only paying for what you use. You can scale up and down to meet opportunities and demand, easily support seasonality in your business. There's no large CapEx outlay as you grow. The solution is very secure. There's no data stored on user devices. We use end-to-end encryption in transit, and we offer the option to encrypt data at rest. So the protocol used is Teradici's PC over IP. That's a AES 256 encrypted solution that runs the pixels representing the screen stream down to the end user system, and the bits representing keystrokes and mouse movement move up to the WorkSpaces environment. It's a high-performance, persistent cloud desktop available to your users. That environment persists within logouts and log back in. It's basically like a standard Windows endpoint, just hosted in the cloud. Very simple to deploy and manage. We provide full SDKs, full APIs. We have console integration. So any of the things that you've used to manage your AWS environment in the past, you can use with WorkSpaces. You can easily integrate with a service catalog or self-help portals. You can easily integrate this product with other tools that you may have in your environment through those APIs and SDKs. And that simple scale and consistent performance, every user has their own instance behind the scenes for a workspace. With WorkSpaces, we're looking to end that PC Lifecycle Treadmill. It lets you extend the life of your client hardware. Instead of the standard 3 to 4 year life cycle, now you can take those assets and use them to access a workspace running in the cloud, running with the power of the AWS environment, and really run those systems for longer. We support bring your own device models. A user can connect to a workspace from tablets, PCs, Mac OS, even Chromebooks and Zero clients. Again, we support self-service, so you can integrate with your service portals. You can integrate with self-help environments so that users can request access, can provision desktops, deprovision desktops, reboot or rebuild on their own terms. WorkSpaces is an easy product to quickly scale up and down. So if you need to adjust for seasonal bursts, it's a very simple process to provision additional workspaces and have that capacity available. Again, they are perpetual, so they persist through a logout, a login activity. The user's data is there in that environment without having to rebuild or redeploy. And it really allows you to move from the standard CapEx model to an OpEx model. WorkSpaces can fit almost anywhere where you're currently using a full Windows desktop. Projects in the end user space, they tend to take some time. This isn't a rip and replace situation. You're going to start with a couple of use cases here and there and expand as you find new use cases. So we recommend checking out the case studies on the AWS webpage, but some quick highlights. WorkSpaces is used in all of our summits, all of the reInvent sessions, for our hands-on labs, for our training environments. Amazon.com uses WorkSpaces in the corporate environment to provide access to contractors and full-time employees. Caltech's Gutman Labs are using WorkSpaces as a bastion into some of their high-performance computing environments. I'll get into a few other examples as we go, but really, WorkSpaces fits in any organization where you have standard Windows desktops today. WorkSpaces plays well with your existing tools. You can access the intranet. User access is granted through Microsoft Active Directory. Systems management can be handled through group policy settings. System Center Configuration Manager can be used to deploy software or make software updates to inventory your workspaces. We tie in with multi-factor authentication solutions that use standard TOTP tokens or radius protocols to provide that multi-factor access and give you an extra level of assurance that your users are who they say they are. And then we work with standard certificate authorities to ensure that users are only accessing workspaces from known endpoint devices. With workspaces, there's no sensitive data stored on a user's device. All data is encrypted at rest. You have an option to integrate with the AWS KMS, so you can use our keys, you can bring your own. The data in the workspace and in the snapshots is encrypted using those KMS encryption options. And that really gives you a lot of flexibility and security to address audit policies or concerns around data encryption at rest. The desktop stream is encrypted in transit. Again, it uses PC over IP. That is encryptable at AES 256 levels, so you get that guaranteed encryption in transit. And PC over IP provides a familiar desktop experience while that happens. So a user can connect, run their applications. If they're in a low bandwidth scenario, PC over IP is a build to lossless protocol. So eventually you will build to a full lossless image on your desktop. No data is stored on those workspace devices. So if your CFO loses a desktop device in the airport, you don't have to do a disclosure because of potential data loss. As soon as that network connection drops, there is no access, there is nothing replicated down to that system. In addition to just general security, we also give you a little bit of additional durability for those users. So all user data is stored on a user data volume that's snapshotted every 12 hours. In the event of an issue where you need to rebuild a user's desktop, that snapshot is reattached to the new workspace after the rebuild. So the user will still have the latest snapshot of their data available through any type of disaster or scenario where they need to be rebuilt. And then Workspaces is ready to meet your security and compliance needs. You can again manage access to Amazon Workspaces using digital certificates, ensuring that the endpoint is one that you know or potentially manage in your environment. Workspaces is PCI DSS Level 1 compliant, conforming to the payment card industry security standard. That means you can use Workspaces to utilize applications and files that contain sensitive cardholder data. Workspaces is HIPAA eligible with a business associate agreement. You can utilize applications and files that contain and work with protected health information. Workspaces, along with all AWS services, are EU GDPR ready. These new robust requirements in the EU really raise the bar for data protection and security and compliance. Workspaces will comply with GDPR when it becomes enforceable on May 25th, 2018. So we have a couple of different billing options with Workspaces. There's a monthly option. This is really best for your full-time staff. It simplifies your AWS bill. You get instant access to an always-on or a monthly-based workspace. That means you can use that workspace to run scheduled tasks, to run long-running tasks. That workspace never shuts down. That's the monthly, the always-on component of that. When you reattach to a workspace that's running with monthly, you get a reattachment in about 6 seconds because that system's up, it's waiting for that connection to come in. We also offer hourly workspaces, which are really better suited for students or part-time staff. The break-even point is around 82 hours a month. So if you're going to be running for more than 82 hours, it makes better financial sense to go with a monthly workspace. For under 82 hours, hourly workspaces may be a consideration. That really helps you optimize that AWS bill. Now it's quick access, but it's not the same as instant access. So an hourly workspace, when a user disconnects, will acquiesce, will go into hibernation mode. That means on the next connection, it's going to take the user about 1 minute to 2 minutes to reconnect to that workspace. Now, if they briefly shut down for the 6 minutes it takes to run across the building to a meeting, that system's still going to be up and waiting. You're going to get that instant connection at that point. But once you've left that workspace idle for an hour or longer, whatever you've configured that timeout period to be, that workspace is going to shut down, go into a hibernation mode, waiting for that user connection before it resumes. So hourly workspaces aren't great for running scheduled tasks or long-running jobs, but they do work really well for those ad hoc tasks and environments. So just speaking to some of the customer successes, Endemol Shine Nederland. They're a world-leading creator, producer, and distributor of multi-platform entertainment. Their portfolio includes American Idol, Big Brother, MasterChef, Man vs. Food, The Biggest Loser, and Wipeout. They have a large number of part-time and temporary workers with operations in over 30 countries, delivering critical business applications, and that ever-evolving and lean environment was difficult. But with Amazon WorkSpaces, they can provide new workers with a Windows desktop and the applications they need within hours instead of days. WorkSpaces makes it easy for their workers to use their preferred devices, and for Endemol Nederland to maintain their security requirements in the AWS environment. Amazon WorkSpaces is cost-effective, no upfront payments, so they state that they've been able to save 30% of their desktop operation costs and 70% on capital expenditures through the use of Amazon WorkSpaces. Other customers and partners include Johnson & Johnson, Pantheon, Bridgewater, and our partner environments. If you're looking for assistance in deploying a WorkSpaces solution, we have API Systems, Cognizant, and Nuvent. You can find more partners on our AWS partner network, and you can see more customer success stories again on our website. All right, so that brings us to WorkDocs. Now, WorkDocs is really for that user data and collaboration. It integrates easily with a WorkSpaces environment, so we usually talk about the two together. WorkSpaces gives you a rich collaboration and sharing model with access available anywhere, access through a web browser or synchronized to your devices. Very easily integrates with both WorkSpaces and traditional desktop environments. As with other AWS services, it is pay-as-you-go. WorkDocs is a secure, fully managed solution. We have an extensible SDK, so you can tie WorkDocs into your existing document management systems, ECM, content repositories, enterprise content management, whatever you need to do. We offer capabilities to tie in with that standard AWS API. Together with WorkSpaces and Amazon WorkDocs, you'll get a 50 gig free tier for Amazon WorkSpaces users. That WorkDocs environment can be upgraded to 1 terabyte for $2 per user per month. With the WorkSpaces environment, you get the capability of Amazon WorkDocs Drive, which shows up in your workspace just like a regular mapped drive. When you're using WorkDocs Drive, it doesn't store or replicate files locally and doesn't use your workspace storage space. All right, and that brings us to AppStream 2.0. Now, where WorkSpaces is really the full desktop environment, AppStream is managing a stack of specific applications, giving users instant access to those applications. Again, there's no infrastructure to manage. You simply create an image, set some parameters for the instance sizing, the minimum, the desired, the maximum number of streaming instances in the fleet, and the AppStream service provisions and deprovisions instances as necessary. AppStream 2.0 is built to be a pure usage model. You pay for resources needed by the hour, by the time that your users are connected. It streams to any HTML5 web browser. There's no additional software to install, no components to download. It just needs to be a modern HTML5 web browser. And that traffic is SSL encrypted between your end users and the AppStream 2.0 instance executing your applications. Now, it varies from the protocol that we use for WorkSpaces. With AppStream 2.0, we're using NICE DCV. That's from the acquisition we did a couple of years ago for NICE. That DCV protocol is really suited for both standard and 3D visualizations over a remote access connection. Of course, that SSL connection gives you that security that you expect from AWS, and we have the global scalability and regional presence that you need to expand throughout the world. AppStream 2.0 can import existing applications with no changes, no rewrites. So there's no customizing your applications or building them for mobile devices. Simply install your applications on a standard Windows instance, no changes, no rewrites, package them up and start streaming. AppStream 2.0 integrates with existing applications, identity entitlements, and backend systems. So you can use in domain join fleets, standard group policy management to configure your Windows instances. If you have licensing servers or things like that you need to access, you can reach those devices through VPC configuration, setting up the network routes. AppStream can access those devices on the back end and take advantage of those systems the same as you would with any other instance. There's no hardware or software to install. Simply add your applications and start streaming. And AppStream 2.0 gives you 1 streaming instance per user. So there are no shared instances. As new users connect, additional instances will spin up to address their needs. AppStream 2.0 use cases include applications across business and public sector environments, ISVs for the ability to deliver trial or demo applications to end users. Really, that AppStream environment gives you a known state. So you know how that instance is configured, you know the experience that any user is going to have on AppStream. You're not concerned about application dependencies or shared libraries or other things like that. Whatever you build into the image used for AppStream is what every user will receive. That gives you a guaranteed environment for conducting training, for delivering consistent user experiences to those applications running on AppStream. And for design and engineering use cases, AppStream 2.0 gives you a way to break out to an instance that has greater capabilities for that pre and post-process visualization on AWS. We have multiple instance families. General purpose for your knowledge worker apps, compute optimized for compute bound applications where you need additional processor capabilities. If you have large data sets processed in memory, that may be an opportunity to use our memory optimized instance types. And then graphics optimized for those high graphics requirements. Within graphics optimized, we actually have 3 different families. There is a graphics design, graphics desktop, and graphics pro. Graphics design instances are powered by the AMD FirePro S7150X2 GPUs. Now that's ideal for delivering applications that rely on hardware acceleration for DirectX, OpenGL, or OpenCL, such as Adobe Premiere Pro, Autodesk Revit, and Siemens NX. But if you need CUDA-based support, our desktop family uses the NVIDIA K520 GPU, same as our GPU-based workspaces, and very similar to what you'd see in the G2 instance types. Our Graphics Pro family uses the NVIDIA Tesla M60. Now, Graphics Pro instances can range up to 64 vCPUs and 488 gig of system memory with 32 gig of graphics memory. Graphics Pro instances are ideal for those graphics workloads that need a massive amount of parallel processing power for your 3D rendering, visualization, and video encoding. This includes applications such as Petrel's Petroleum Exploration and Production software from Schlumberger, Landmark's Decision Space for geoscientific analysis, or Motion DSP's Ikena for real-time video enhancements and analysis. Now, I don't know how to use any of those products, so if I do a demo later, I'm going to show you how to render a toy helicopter in Blender. So customer success stories for AppStream 2.0, we have AVEVA that uses Amazon AppStream 2 to deliver instant access to their Everything 3D on-demand self-training platform. The AVEVA experience gives them anytime, anywhere access on any device. AVEVA can configure a single instance of E3D and deliver it to any number of engineers going through their training experience anywhere in the world. Because it runs in the browser, customers don't need to worry about configuring or securing the computers or network. They can immediately start learning E3D with that responsive and fluid experience that is, and this is a direct quote, my favorite quote, indistinguishable from a native installation on a workstation. That's all we can really ask for. Okay, so we've talked about the products. Now let's get into some deployment considerations. I'm going to start with a scenario. An existing AWS customer, a hybrid architecture, a mix of applications both on-premises and in the cloud. An existing Active Directory environment for identity with AWS Direct Connect already in place. Now, it's not necessary that any of these scenarios really already have these pieces in place. We're just starting from a common frame of reference here. We're going to talk about an environment with 4,000 users, but really the main differences in user scaling is just the size of your subnets and whether you use a small or a large directory type. In our scenario, we'll talk about a 30% contingent workforce. And a lot of that's that fiscal cycle surge or project-based drivers such as marketing campaigns or M&A activities. And then 10% of our users have a need for special purpose computing environments such as engineering users, data scientists, or GIS folks. And we have the same 5 basic attributes here that we introduced at the beginning of the conversation for workspaces around bring your own device and mobile flexibility. So the approach, and obviously I have to oversimplify things a bit here, but as far as user segmentation, think about your main drivers. Do you perhaps have concerns with asset management for your temporary workers? Do your engineering workers complain that they need more powerful systems to support some of their applications? Are the developers regularly requesting systems with higher specs than your standard? So think about those initial use cases, evaluate the performance characteristics, and build on that pilot solution. Could you use WorkSpaces or AppStream to offer better performance or simplify the experience for home users versus something like standard VPN connectivity? These are just some of the elements that could go into your decision-making process, and you need to really establish those success criteria up front. Are your success criteria, is your project going to be driven by user acceptance, by cost reduction, by environment simplification? What is your desired outcome? On the technical aspects, you can do a high-level proof of technology with standalone systems, but you're really only going to be able to prove out the access model, the protocol, the performance of the service in your user's environment. A key element to moving from that real proof of technology to a true proof of concept is connectivity to that corporate environment. You won't get an accurate gauge of user acceptance until the users have access to their email, their corporate resources, the intranet, whatever, from the solution that you're building. And it's AWS, so you can deploy and iterate. You can make changes. Your decisions aren't final. You can change instance types or fleet sizes to try different performance characteristics to really see what the right fit is for your users, your applications, and your environment. The first step in any implementation is really to look at that account structure. And you see here, I've really split out that end user environment as a separate account. Separate AWS accounts give you distinct administrative boundaries. Your end user administrators are often going to be different from your application admins, from your DBAs, from your developers. So this is really an area where having that separate account boundary gives you that administrative characteristic, that administrative separation to just guarantee that your admins can't impact services outside of their purview. Now, in this case, this is somewhere where AWS organizations could help with the overall account relationships, the structure and governance. But even if you're not using organizations, I still recommend a payer-linked account structure with that separation based on administrative boundaries. Central logging in the payer account, your user environment, your workspaces and AppStream broken out separately. Now, some companies will split out accounts by type of environment, like dev and prod, as shown in this diagram. Others by business segment or department. Some even by infrastructure characteristics, such as legacy and cloud first. However you're currently structuring your separation, that end user environment really needs to be separate. And you can use VPC peering or VPN connectivity to give access to that shared services account where your environment, like your Active Directory system, your multi-factor authentication, or ADFS could exist. From account structure, we'll move on to some network design decisions. Now, in our use case, we first said we were going to have about 4,000 users. So that's a minimum VPC site or block of a /20, so 4,096 addresses. Amazon WorkSpaces always requires 2 subnets in different availability zones. Amazon AppStream 2.0 should be deployed across 2 subnets in different availability zones. We allow you to deploy it with just one AZ, but really recommend sticking to those well-architected principles and deploying across 2 separate AZs. And you need to size those subnets to accommodate the target end state capacity. So we started with a /20. Now that gives you 2 /21s, 2,048 addresses each. And while that would be sufficient for the current needs for the scenario that we've outlined, if you want to allow for future growth, maybe start at a /19, so 8,192 addresses, and then subdivide. 2 /21s for workspaces, 2 /22s for AppStream, leaves you with a /21 left over. This is going to take some whiteboarding with your network engineers. So if you have plenty of IP space available, maybe you start with a bigger block. If you grow beyond the boundaries of your original VPC, you might need to add a new range. We do support adding additional CIDR blocks to a VPC, but this isn't something you're going to be able to design without the input from those network engineers. So now we've set up the account. We have our networking defined, your VPCs and subnets created. Here's what you need to know about networking interfaces. An instance in either service has 2 network interfaces. ETH0 is the service interface. So in the cases of workspaces, that's PC over IP. In the case of AppStream 2.0, that's nice DCV. ETH1, that's the interface that resides in your VPC, so it will get an address from the subnets that we just defined. You control how those AppStream instances or workspaces get access to the internet through ETH1. You can run it through a NAT, through a content filtering system, through a security stack on EC2, a partner product from the marketplace like Sophos, Cisco, or Palo Alto Networks. You can run that connection back over your virtual private gateway through a VPN or direct connect. You could run traffic through on-site content or security control points. It's totally up to you. The routing rules and security groups in your VPC affect ETH1. You have full control of that interface. It means you can get back to those file servers, the backend databases, licensing servers, and so on, either in your VPC, in a peered VPC, or on-prem. So after deciding on the network, we move to user access and directory integration. Now, for our example, we're going to assume a requirement for domain authentication in both WorkSpaces and AppStream. All WorkSpaces will be joined to an Active Directory domain. The AWS Directory Service is required to connect users to their Amazon workspace. That directory service gives you a registration code. It's the same for all users in a given directory. But that's really where the directory service comes in. It generates that reg code, and that tells the Workspaces client how to connect your user to their workspace. Now, AppStream 2.0, fleets can be domain joined or standalone. Domain joined fleets integrate via SAML with your identity provider. There is no AWS directory service required for AppStream 2.0. Again, for our purposes, we're going to talk about domain joined fleets, but we're going to integrate that with SAML, not with directory services. AppStream domain joined fleets, the connection between the user and the fleet is handled by the relay state passed through that SAML response. In both Workspaces and AppStream, you can certainly reach back to on-prem AD controllers as long as your VPC has a VPN or direct connect link, but I generally recommend extending AD into EC2, defining site boundaries for those subnets. So again, Workspaces, domains can be standalone, but the workspace must be domain joined. Around Active Directory, we're always going to recommend extending AD into AWS on EC2, then use cross-account VPC peering for communications to a shared services VPC. The reason you want to have those Active Directory instances extended into EC2 is so you can define the VPCs and Active Directory sites and services and manage that traffic to keep that traffic local to AWS. Outside of the communication to the directory service for the initial user authentication, all other communication for Workspaces is native between AD and the workspace. So all group policy replication, everything else that happens, all authentication traffic, all checks against security groups, that's all going to be native AD traffic. So having that site defined will make sure that you keep that traffic local and you get that high-speed connection. And then for both environments, you're creating Workspaces, creating AppStream 2 instances in Active Directory. So we recommend separating Active Directory organizational units by service and region. All right, so now let's go to a demo. I am going to start with a connection to Workspaces. All right, here we go. So this is the PC client for Workspaces. Now I've previously logged in, so I can save some time and just click the reconnect button here. You'll see the session loads, and I have a standard Windows desktop. Now, in this environment, I have mapped a home share so that I can share that space between the user in the workspace and the AppStream environment, and I'll show that in just a little bit here. But first I wanted to show this is a standard workspace, and so it has no GPU acceleration. So if I try to run something like Blender, you'll see this error. Your system does not use 3D hardware acceleration. Blender requires a graphics driver with OpenGL2 support. This may be caused by a missing or faulty driver installation, accessing Blender through a remote connection, or using Blender through a virtual machine. So I have checked every box in the reasons for failure here. So what can we do? If I want to give users access to that GPU capability and it doesn't work in the local workspace, I have in this case created an AppStream instance that uses that GPU capability. And now I want to be clear, Workspaces and AppStream 2.0 can operate independently. You don't need to use them in this scenario. I'm simply showing in the demo how you can go from a standard workspace to a GPU-enabled AppStream session to give that integrated capability to your users. So what you saw there is I double-clicked the icon for AppStream, and I'm using Okta's integrated Windows authentication to pass through to get me all the way into my AppStream session. So from here, I'm going to start Blender. And now this is a domain joined instance. That means I'm using SAML authentication to get through, but I do have an additional authentication prompt. It's because we can't pass a password via SAML onto an instance for interactive login. So we do prompt one additional time for that user's password. And now we'll provision the AppStream session. And you can see Blender starts up. So now within Blender, if we go to File, Open, you'll see I have the same user shares that I showed, mapped to the workspace. And in this way, I can actually have a workflow that takes advantage of both services by using the same file sharing. So here's the helicopter scene I mentioned earlier. We'll open that up. And we're going to start a render. Now this is a GPU-enabled instance, but I haven't yet enabled GPU for the render. So you'll see, and it's a little hard to read, but we have about 4 minutes and 20 seconds remaining using CPU rendering. So just to kind of show the difference in what that GPU gives us, I'm going to go down and change the preferences in Blender to use the CUDA processing of the Tesla M60 display. We'll save that. Now we're going to re-render that scene. Now it's moving much faster. We're showing a remaining time of only 13 seconds. So end to end, it takes a little over 20 seconds to do the full quality render when we're using GPU acceleration versus CPU. Now in Blender, I'm outputting my render files back to my H drive. You can see here I'm pushing to H renders. So if I minimize my AppStream session, open that file share back on my workspace, go to renders, you can see I've just created that file, and we can open that up and process it through whatever standard workflows you would have for those types of documents. This is a great way if you're doing engineering applications or just engineering review. You have a supervisor that's not working in AutoCAD all day. This is a great way for them to be able to open a drawing, to review a drawing, but not provision resources that require that full GPU capability throughout the day. So as you can see, I now have access to that application on my workspace, and I can move from there. And I'm also replicating this content up with WorkDocs. If we go back to the root of my H drive, I have a shared with me folder here. This is all replicating up to a WorkDocs environment. That makes sure that whatever environment I'm in, if I'm on a mobile device, if I'm in a tablet, I can go and I can pull those same source files down as necessary in the field. All right. Now these environments are running in a VPC, and I have created a VPN connection back to my home. So you can see within a workspace, I have access to an HP Color LaserJet running on my network. And you know that Amazon isn't running, HP Color LaserJets in the cloud. So this is a good way to show. This is just connecting back to my home. Fortunately, no one has turned off the tiny router in my closet. You can see that I'm running particularly low on yellow and blue, so I'm guessing my kids have been printing a whole bunch of minions. But this gives you that access back to your corporate resources, the things that might be on-prem. And because I've set the same thing up for my AppStream environment, I'm running in that same VPC, I can start a browser there, and I can get to that same environment. There we go. So that's that demo of the access back to those on-prem systems. All right. So WorkSpaces is available in 10 regions. We're available in Virginia, Oregon, Seoul, Ireland, Frankfurt, London, Singapore, Sydney, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. AppStream 2.0 is available in 7 regions: Virginia, Oregon, Ireland, Frankfurt, Singapore, Sydney, and Tokyo. So you can easily spin up new services in new regions in response to business needs, mergers and acquisition activities, or employee movement. We have available right now, there's a WorkSpaces free tier. So you can go out, run 2 standard bundle workspaces for 40 hours a month, up to 2 calendar months. That can be the Windows 7 or Windows 10 experience, and that includes Amazon WorkDocs with 50 gig of storage. Now, I mentioned Windows 7 and Windows 10 experience. A workspace is actually running a server operating system behind the scenes. With Windows 7, it's Server 2008 R2 with the Windows Desktop Experience Pack. And with Windows 10, it's Server 2016 R2 with the Windows Desktop Experience Pack. With WorkDocs, you can try WorkDocs for free, integrated with that workspace environment. You get a 30-day free trial with 1 terabyte of storage per user, up to 50 users. WorkSpaces users receive access to Amazon WorkDocs at no additional charge. Now, there is no free tier for Amazon AppStream 2.0, but you can try it with no setup required. Very easy to get in, try some sample applications, business, design, engineering, and developer apps, upload your own files, test some workflows, save your work and print. Very easy to get in and set those capabilities up. Again, there's no special packaging required. You simply connect to a Windows desktop, install your applications, point to the shortcut, and build the image from there. All right, and that wraps it up. So now we'll take some time for questions.